What's up, guys? Welcome to Masculinity Rising number 3. We're going to be chatting with Blake Williams today, all about what a lot of men are experiencing, which is I want to get a little bit more out of life, and going through the things that are holding people back from that. Self-doubt, fear, shame, not being able to find the courage within, and the inner wounds that hold people back. And this is Masculinity Rising. This is a little project that I'm running right now. My mission is to create a world where men can rise to their fullest potential. And I strive to empower men to cultivate the strength, the power, the presence to become powerful leaders for themselves, their families, and in their professions. My ultimate goal is to build a community of uncommon men who embody physical vitality, mental resilience, emotional intelligence, and are spiritually grounded. Through Masculinity Rising, I aim to create a movement that transforms the lives of men, women, children, and society as a whole. And that is what we are here to do with Mr. Blake Williams today. Tune in for this. There's some absolutely amazing stuff about healing the inner wounds so that you can embody your fullest potential and scale the Everest in your life. Enjoy, stay till the end, drop a comment, a like, share this with your friends, and have an amazing day. And I'm excited to hang out with you today. So Blake and I go, I wouldn't say way back, but we go a ways back at this point. Blake and I met when I was working as a trainer early in my career at Lifetime. Blake is an overcomer. He's found ways to dig deep through life experiences that really break down and can destroy many people. His courage and his willingness to face his challenges head on has really expanded his resilience capacity, whereas a lot of people tend to be broken down by those things. And this has inspired him to guide other people to overcome their own personal Everests, their own personal challenges as well. He's the founder of Battle Tested, which when I saw that he had created it, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I wish I had access to this when I was younger playing team sports, which it's a profit leadership development program for athletes. And he's the author of 3 books, not 2. I made that mistake before. He's working on a 4th. He's got Battle Tested and Giant Killer out there, 2 different Battle Testeds, which he's going to tell us about. And the most important thing about Blake, he's the father of 5, and that's what we're here to talk about too. And like I said, I met him at Lifetime as a trainer years ago. I had the pleasure of facilitating his first ice bath during COVID, which he brought forward to his athletes as well. So that was a really cool experience. And sir, I'm so excited
really cool
to have you here.
Pun intended, right? Yep. A very cool experience.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with those dad jokes.
Yeah.
You're gonna get me fired up.
You're father, we gotta get you working.
You can go all in on those.
Fill up your bar.
Hey, I gotta build some reps with my dad jokes. So one of the things I want to dive straight into, because when you said this, it really I laughed because it was a perfect encapsulation of what I see that you do, and really what I see that many men, including myself, had needed in the past. You've been a Sherpa for me. You told me about mentors. You inspired me to become uncommon myself. I actually stole that phrase from you. Thank you for it. You could take it back if you absolutely need it. But you describe yourself as a Sherpa who helps to guide people up their own personal Everest, calling them to greater heights in their lives. And I'm curious, what does that mean to you?
So we're clear that everybody who's watching knows a Sherpa are these indigenous people in Nepal where Mount Everest is, and they often get hired to help gringos like us that want to climb Mount Everest. They get paid really good money, or at least maybe it's good for them, maybe it's not. They get paid money to help people ascend and descend Mount Everest safely, hopefully, right? So they are skilled in doing that. They risk their own lives for these people, but what they're doing is they're serving. Yes, they're getting paid, but they are serving and giving of themselves and really taking a lot of risks to help these people who want to climb Mount Everest be successful. That's the hope. And that really does describe myself and you and a lot of people that I know is that, and there are some of us that are just wired and built to serve. That's what fills our tank. Hopefully we can make it fill the bank too, but at least fills the tank. And like, I want to do this. I want to help others climb the mountains that they want to climb. Now, I've encountered a lot of people who have climbed the mountain. Let's say they're a successful leader in their own right, whatever right that might be, but they've climbed the mountain, so to speak, and people look up to them because they have climbed this level to this level of success. And what I notice about some of those people is from the mountaintop, they will yell down, "Hey, it's great up here. Come on up. The air is wonderful. It's clear. Come join me up here." And to me, that's not effective leadership. Effective leadership is coming down off the mountain that you maybe have already climbed and walking arm in arm with someone up the mountain, because there's going to be things along the way, barriers along the way, obstacles, hurdles that are going to try to knock those people down and to prevent them from climbing that mountain. So yeah, I'm just super passionate about trying to help people up the mountains that maybe I've already climbed, or using the knowledge that I've gained from the mountains that I have climbed to help them climb the mountains that they desire to climb and to achieve those levels of success that they want to achieve. So to me, that's what a Sherpa does. We help use our knowledge, use our experience, use our gifts to help other people maybe get from where they are to where they dream.
Yeah, I love that. And there's the Sherpa are so interesting to me because they're biologically, they have a biological advantage for being able to do that. Like they're there scaling Everest. Like this is just what we do because their lineage has lived there for so long. They have a very unique lung capacity, and there's the Bohr effect, which is oxygen carbon dioxide exchange. So they can just pull that in more effectively. So they don't get winded at high altitudes like other people. And I think that that's a really, if we take the analogy one step further, they have evolved in that environment and are specifically suited to teach people how to climb this Everest, but also any challenges that you're going through in your life, you have the ability to make those adaptations to be more suited or resilient to whatever your environment is, whether it's your health, your profession, your finances, your relationships, whatever. And then you can bring that forward to other people or use that to move to new heights. And when you were talking about leadership, it made me think of, I had one person that I follow on Instagram share like just a photo of like, this is what a wolf pack looks like. Let me break down each individual role within there. And within the wolf pack, the eldest go first because they set the pace. And then you have five of the strongest right behind them so that they can defend them if necessary. And then you've got some middle of the pack, wolves in the middle. Towards the end, you have the next five strongest to make sure that the back is taken care of. And trailing way behind is the alpha. He's not out in front like, hey, just keep up with me, whatever, or like hiding in the middle. He's in the most vulnerable position of all of them, like way behind everybody else. As the leader, he is most well suited to defend the back, but also he's the organizer as well. So like you said, it's whatever Everest we've climbed in our lives, and this could be like being a dad or being a partner in a relationship or being a friend or being within your organization. It's not it is our responsibility. We don't have to do it, but we can choose to come down off that mountain and be like, let's do this together. And that's what a really good leader and coach is. So from there, one, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to that. But then two, I'm curious, with the people that you work with, especially males, men, boys, we can open this thing up as well. What do you see that people are desiring to work towards the most? What are they looking at? Like, that's where I want to be. And I don't know how to
In my experience, and this is going to be vague, but it is true. Like, I think all men, and I'm sure it's probably true of women, but I'll speak for men because that's my DNA. You know, we want more. know that there's anyone on this earth who would say, yes, I'm exactly where I want to be in all aspects of my life. Like we long to achieve and succeed and be more, whether that's being a better husband, a better father, a better employee, a better business leader, whatever it is. Man, I just want to be better at it. I want to achieve more, because we could all probably look at our life and say, I'm pretty good in this area, this area, this area, but over here, I fall short. Whether that's me holding myself back, or whether that's I'm allowing other people that I associate with to hold me back. Like, we all recognize we have some shortcomings, and I think most men are pretty good at recognizing our shortcomings, but we allow those things to prevent us from being more successful. But we all just want a little more. We all want, and then maybe we get that little more, we'll want a little more still. It's like, I've never met a man who's just totally just content, unless they're at the end of their life and they know that, hey, I'm breathing my last breath. They're just not content with the status quo where I am now. You use the word uncommon, as I have. It's like, if we just have this common mentality of life, oh yeah, I'm good enough. I've got good enough skills. I'll be fine. I'll just take life as it comes, and I'll get by. Like, that's common. And common people don't reach common heights. They don't reach the Everest height. You have to be uncommon in the way that you go about things, the way you think, the way you view the world, in order to achieve uncommon heights. But the men that I work with, they are in pursuit of more. That more could look a lot of different ways.
Where do you imagine, or where do you see? Because I see it that there's a healthy place that can come from, but then there's also an unhealthy place that can come from too. And I think that's part of the giant killer story as well. But where do you think that desire and pursuit for more is coming from within the guys that you've worked with, but then within men?
Well, I think we live in a broken world. If we go back to Adam and Eve, and that things were broken. This life that we were supposed to have on this earth went awry from the very first man, who made a poor choice. We have this gift to be used, which is we have the ability to choose. It's one of the greatest gifts I think we have on this earth, is that, Rob, you can choose one way and Blake can choose a different way. And it's our choice. No one has to make those choices for us as we grow up. We make those choices. Yeah. So I'm losing my train of thought of what exactly you asked. So ask that question.
You're good.
Thank you.
I can bring you back. I can bring you back to it. And I think the Adam and Eve analogy is really, really important. As I'm going through this book of Wild at Heart, which is really, really cool. He breaks it.
If you're a man, you need to read that book.
And it's pretty excellent. And he brings in a lot of Robert Bly stuff, which is Robert Bly, Iron John's another absolutely necessary one for, I think, every person in a male body to read, to understand yourself a little bit more. But he talks about, the first test of Adam was, well, once she's eaten the apple, what do I do? And he eats it too. Mm-hmm. And then what does he do? He goes and hides, because he realizes that he's really vulnerable and he messed up. And part of our work is redeeming that, but we get the opportunity in every moment to show up and to go along passively, or to do something uncommon and be like, yeah, that's happening, but here's what we're going to do instead. And that can come from, Adam's actions. I imagine, no idea. I don't know the dude, but he's inside of me. He's inside of all of us. That proto-human can be motivated by fear. That's why you would go hide, especially if you have this God who's highly powerful, and you're like, I'm naked, I don't have any weapons, I'm going to go hide over here. Or they can be motivated by heart, by love. So bringing it back to the question I asked, where do you see this desire for more with a lot of guys that you work with? And you said, we can be our biggest critics. Where do you see the drive coming from initially? Do you see that most guys are coming to it from a place of like, open heart, like, I love this so much? Or do you see some men coming to you like, there's scarcity, there's
gotcha.
fear,
Great
there's
question.
lack?
And I would say the majority, again, the majority that I've worked with are coming to me. And I think it's so common in those who are maybe feeling a bit less than, I don't have the tools that I need to achieve what I want. Those are the people looking for help. And so therefore, the people that I often hear from are those that they're coming out of place, out of their wound. You know, they've been wounded and they've been hurt and they feel like they're falling short and they're not achieving and enjoying the life that they would love to be enjoying. And so it's usually people coming to me out of a place of that, like, hey, I've been through some stuff. I need help. I need help getting past it. I need help getting past my own self-doubts and fears and beliefs about myself to really try to achieve and enjoy a life of more. So,
Can you tell me about a little bit more about what you mean by the wound?
So I don't know a single person who hasn't been wounded in some way in their life, and that's male or female. Why? Because we are all human. We were all raised by imperfect humans, whether those people were our parents or guardians or whatever. We have all been surrounded by imperfect people who, again, gift of choice, but they've made choices that have hurt themselves, that have hurt others. We all have wounds. You know, sometimes you've heard the term probably daddy wounds or mommy wounds, mother wounds. You know, we've been wounded by those typically that are closest to us. You know, those that we are closest to have the ability to hurt us more than anybody else does, because we've let them in, we've trusted them, we rely on them, especially, you know, mothers and fathers when we're young, we rely on them for protection and for provision. And so that is the wound I'm talking about. And Wild at Heart speaks to that wound, right? And you know, a lot of men, unfortunately, we've fallen short, and our fathers and grandfathers have fallen short. And so a lot of us have a father wound. I have a father wound. My dad had 4 kids, but after kid number 2 was not very interested in being a dad. Good at helping birth kids, but not so good at being around and present. And so in and out of jail, not there, not didn't even show interest in being a part of my life until I turned 40 years old. So, but then also given away by my mom to some degree. You know, she started over another life and wasn't this new husband didn't want her to take all 4 of her kids to his home that they were starting. So he said, "Hey, pick 2," and I wasn't chosen. And so, you know, God bless my mom. I love her. But she made a choice that hurt me. She made a choice that for her at the time she felt was the right one for her, starting over, security, all those things, but that really wounded me. So now I'm carrying wounds from 2 different parents that really impacted me deeply as I grew up.
Yeah, I want to dig into those a little bit more in a second if you're open to it. And I think about these wounds that we experience because no one can see them unless you have special glasses, wound glasses. Once you're accustomed to it, then you see people walking around and you're like, I understand why you're behaving this way, why you may do these things. But when it comes to any wound, whether you have it on your arm, your foot, or internally in your heart, there's going to be processes that happen that are a means of helping to expel whatever's inside the wound, the splinter. You know, you get a splinter, there's going to be pus, and the pus isn't the problem; it's the splinter that's in there. And in our lives, those can show up as shame, guilt, fear, self-doubt,
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that you mentioned inwardly, but then externally through the words that we speak, the actions that we take that can harm ourselves and or others as well. And a lot of the ways that we show up are just symptoms. They're that pus in the wound. They're not the problem. It's the wound that's the problem. But so many of us don't have the skill set to understand that and go back and really in tribal days, that's what the male initiation, the grandfathers were there to help guide us through. So I want to rewind a little bit and bring it back to your experiences with your father and then your mother, and you weren't one of the 2 kids that were chosen to go with, and really what that opened up that wound, because that's what a wound is, it's an opening inside of you, the stories that were part of that, because very often that happens and we believe something about ourselves and that dictates how we show up. It's a little mask that we wear going forward. Just to begin there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Curious about those
small town Alabama, parents married right out of high school. No education. My dad, it was one of those shotgun weddings, right? Got pregnant. Oh, do the right thing. They got married. And then they went on to have 4 kids, and I was the youngest of 4. 2 older sisters, an older brother than me. And by the time I was 3, the family split up. Dad was never there. He was gone. According to my mom, wheeling and dealing. I don't really know what that meant, but I knew it landed him in jail often. So he obviously wasn't very good at it. Kept getting caught. So, my mom tried to make things work, and we lived with her parents for a while, and that was a mess. And so before long, it's just like, okay, this family, this dysfunctional family needs to split up, and it did. So 2 older sisters went to live with an aunt and a grandmother for a while, and my brother and I, we were sent to live 30 minutes away in a town with a great aunt of mine, my dad's aunt. And that was supposed to all be temporary, but a couple of years go by, my mom meets another guy, wants to marry her, and again the pick 2 situation. So that happens. There's no dad. There's now no mom. There's just me, my brother, and my great aunt now trying to make the best of what we had, and those things created this wound in me that said, Blake Williams, you are not enough. The people that are supposed to love you most have, in my view at that time, given you away. They didn't want you. They discarded you. They set you aside. They didn't want you. And so that creates this lie, because it is a lie in me that I am not worthy. I'm not lovable. I'm rejected. Like, talk about a fear of rejection. Like, this is what I grew up with, this fear of being rejected by people, because I've already been rejected by those that I thought were going to be my ride or die, right? They're always going to be there for me, but I've already been rejected by them in my mind. So that was my major wound growing up, was trying to learn how to cope with that and live life with that.
And can I ask you more about it? What behaviors did you find, and we usually only realize these things as we get older, but what were the behaviors that you adopted in order to protect yourself?
I was, a chameleon. So if I had a group of people over here behaving a certain way, I wanted to fit in with that group of people. I would go behave like they behaved. Same with this group and that group and that group. I would be whatever you wanted me to be in order for you to like me. I didn't want to be rejected by anyone. So I would go out of my way. And you talk about wearing masks. I had different masks I would wear for different groups so that I would hopefully show them a mask that they wanted to see. Because I knew this mask, the real mask, that's ugly. No one wants to see that. People reject that mask. So let me put on this mask. They're going to like this mask, right? So I wear that mask with that group of people. Okay, this Blake guy's pretty cool, and I'm accepted, right? So that was the primary behavior that came out. Of course, I had a hard time trusting people because those that I should have been able to trust the most let me down. So that was certainly a side effect of the wound, having a hard time with that. I also was a people pleaser. And that maybe doesn't sound like a bad thing, but that can be a bad thing. Like, I, again, wanted everyone to be happy with Blake Williams. And if you're not, man, I'm going to bend over backwards. If anyone was ever mad at me, Rob, that would destroy me. Like, I had to go out of my way. Even if it's the bully, I got to try to be friends with a bully because I don't want anyone not to like me. And so I just constantly trying to please people. And that just expends a lot of energy and effort and doing things you feel like you have to do to be liked, when in essence I'd had friends would tell me later, like, why do you act like that? Like, we like you regardless of you doing these dumb things. So those were some of the things I did early on. Like you said, I didn't realize until later that those were the things that I was doing to really protect my heart. That's what it was all about. I didn't want to
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think it's a thing that many of us do more often than we realize. Whether it's a bigger, we've got capital T trauma, small t trauma, and the thing is, at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter, because you can have something very small happen to you in your
Yeah.
life and experience it as a capital T, or you can have something very big and experience it as a capital T or a small t. But we all have these wounds, and I think that so many
Mm.
people play the chameleon role
Oh yeah.
out of fear of rejection, and at the same time, I lost where I was going there. But so many people play that chameleon role and are people pleasers as well. And those things are different, but they tie in together. And that can become a very big problem in any of your 5 life areas: your health, your relationships, your finances, your money, your profession, your work. Because when you become a people pleaser, you shove down your own needs in order to put the needs of others above yourself, and you can very easily become a doormat, which is terrible for your health, which is where I was when I started getting into this work. I was like, I'm saying yes to things that I should say no to, because I feel it in my heart. I feel the big drop, like an empty space, when I say yes to these things. So my next question for you is, what was the initiation experience for you, where you had that moment where you're like, oh, I need to let go of this person that Blake Williams puts on his face and actually take the mask off and show up as me? Because the initiation classically is a death of the boy, or the ego itself, if we want to look at it that way, and showing up as our true self, our true essence. And that's what classical initiations have been all about. And we're at a place now where men have to figure out how to do that for themselves, and many of them don't figure it out and stay on this people pleasing path. So I'm curious, the initiation experience and the process that you went through to start taking those
Yeah,
masks
because
off.
really growing up, I was raised by a woman, so there was no strong male role model to show me, hey, this is what it looks like to be a good man, and this is how you become that. Like there was really no true initiation. And I know most kids would say, well, I don't have that either, but at least most people have a good male they can look at and try to emulate, whether they know they're doing it or not. Mine really happened in college. I I found God. And for me, it was, and if you read Wild at Heart, that's why I connected that book so much. For me, there was this very real God moment of me coming to a saving belief in God. And God is the ultimate father, right? Created everything, heavens and earth. And so for me, I went from a guy who didn't have any father, no father figure on this earth that I could look to now all of a sudden realizing, well, now I've got the best father there is. And I'm finally, um, I, I guess I thought I was rejected by him too. I didn't feel the closest to him. I believed in him, but it wasn't there. But in June of '89, I finally experienced that. And so now there is this really understanding starting to sink in that, wow, I do have a father who cares about me and who does not reject me. And he didn't set me aside. Perhaps I was being set apart and prepared for some ways that he's going to use me. I certainly believe he has uses for all these people on this earth, and me included. So I began to really accept the love of God, and that helped me to, because I guess I really didn't believe it before then. Could God really love me, this small town Alabama redneck from this broken kid, right? And why would he ever want or care about me? And so when I finally came into that knowledge, that's when I started believing in me more and recognizing that I am special and that I'm not a reject and I am worthy. And that was the start of it. But it's been a lot of work over the decades. And some of that isn't through counseling, really trying to heal that wound.
Yeah, it's, I think that there's a really impactful analogy between God, whoever you look up to as that figure, and earthly father as well, the one that's walking around flesh and blood, and that your relationship with one is unconsciously projected onto the other. Like you said, I don't know that I'm worthy of that love from you. If we go down that route, the religious route, the
Yep.
big word is sin. I have this sin and I carry it. No one else does. No one else does. It's just me. I'm not worthy. And in healing that relationship with any father in your life, you can then project that healed relationship outward and start to change your relationship with the father figure. And one of the big things in the process of classical initiation for men is finding the non-blood related father, the person outside of the family unit, because you have to move out beyond that, who is then going to take you under their wing, a mentor, or going into like an internship position. Like so many of our jobs up until recently have been apprenticeships, things along those lines. Another man who is in that superior role, who is going to then teach you everything you needed and accept you in to become that man. My question for you is, what tools, techniques, what practices helped you begin the process of not just cleaning the wound, but like starting to remove that splinter for you? And I recognize this stuff's
That's
ongoing.
be a lifetime of that. But I about the age of 40 is when I really started to. A friend recommended me actually to a therapist, counselor, if you will, and that's where I started to revisit the wound. Um, I believe that you're only going to heal the wound if you're willing and have the courage to go back and visit the wound, to understand it, to process it, to see it from a safe vantage point, perhaps. There are some people I know that don't have the courage to do that. And it's sad because they think it's better to live with the wound than to go back and really cozy up next to it and get the healing around it. My wife wasn't willing to do that. So I know people like that, and it's sad. And so, but I had the courage, and someone kind of helped push me in that direction. And I just knew I got to that point in my life where I want more out of this life, and I know that I am holding myself back from that more. So therefore, I need to work on me. And so for 5 years, every other week, I met with this guy and we dug into the wound and revisited. And as I started to learn more about the wound and what happened, it really gave me the ability to forgive myself. And that sounds weird to say, but I needed to forgive myself um, from the wound. Like it wasn't my fault. Because even though, yeah, I could tell, oh, yeah, it wasn't my fault. It was my mom's fault, my dad's fault. There's still that something in little kids when you go through that you still projected onto yourself. Like that was, what could I have done differently to have avoided that? And so we still kind of blame ourselves to some degree. So it was nice for me. I remember being able to finally one day, it happened like in one session, like, wow, I'm giving myself some grace here, some forgiveness. Of course, I would have acted like this X because of what I went through over here. So that was empowering for me, just the knowledge and understanding of what I went through and how it causes people to behave, the pus, as you said, as a result of the splinter. So that was very, very empowering. And again, I did 5 years of work around that. I still do work around that. There's still times when the wound comes back to bite me, but I win most of the battles these days. But yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like it really began with your awakening experience with finding God, like you said, and then in terms of the practices, like the things that you had to start doing, or didn't have to, because you could choose not to. Have to is that child consciousness. I choose to is that adult, mature consciousness. Was one, mustering up the courage. It's in there. It's in there. So I want to ask you, What was that like for you? What was that experience of like finding the courage? Because some of us are like, well, where is that? I would like to find it.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for
Courage
you?
is a funny thing. It comes in waves. Sometimes we feel very courageous. Sometimes we feel like we have zero of it. People talk about mustering up the courage, and it really is. For me, it's just committing to go once. All I had to do was just take a small step. I wasn't committing to 5 years of therapy when I went into that, right? I was committed to go one time, meet with this guy, and just see if maybe we liked each other. And so much of courage is a baby step. Don't think about the big thing. Think about, how can I break this down into small, digestible chunks, right? I can't eat the elephant in one bite. One small thing I can do. What is one small step? When I started Battle Tested, it was the same way. I'd never started a company before, knew nothing about it, scared to death, but yet feeling called to do that. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. This is one of the reasons that God put you on this earth. Go do it. But, well, I just wound up, I started with one thing. Okay, I'm going to create a company name. And I did that. Okay, what's next? And so I just started really small baby steps of getting there. And after each step, sometimes the courage I needed was different. But every step required courage, and I might have to find it a little different way and be encouraged by this person or whatever. But for me, that's been the biggest thing, is just break it down into small pieces, find courage for just that next small step. Find the courage to get out of bed today. Don't worry about the rest of your life. Just find the courage to get out of bed today and face the day. Mm-hmm.
One thing at a time. Yeah, you had I have the best father that loves me moment. And then courage, I'm a student of language. The etymology of courage, it comes from the root core, which means heart. It comes from our heart. So that you had that heart experience first, and then that gave you the heart to step into it and really making sure that you were then taking appropriately sized steps. Like, I'm not going to do this marathon, but I can take the first step. It's like, I'm going to go in for this first appointment and just start cleaning this little wound here. I don't know where it's going to go, but that's where we're going to go. And then working through from courage, getting into some of that work with the therapist, and having that moment of like grace for yourself, but forgiving yourself. Like you said, so often as kids, things that happen in our lives, we take personally, like we were responsible for it. We did it. It was our fault. What was that forgiveness process like for you?
A long process, first of all. It came incrementally as well. Like an onion, layers of it. An initial like aha moment of, okay, wow, that wasn't my fault. I can forgive myself that wasn't my fault. That wasn't on me. That wasn't within my control. And so there was this kind of first layer, high level, okay, I'm not a piece of garbage, kind of forgiveness, right? But then, as years goes by, the onion gets peeled back, and there's more things like, I remember I did that one horrible thing to someone, perhaps because of my wound, and I never forgave myself for that. That person maybe forgave me, but I didn't forgive myself for that. And so this really has been like this onion. So it's the same way of taking those baby steps to courage. Sometimes it's the baby steps to forgiveness. Like, just find something to forgive myself for, and then there might be something else down the road, and then down the road again there might be something more. And so it has been that process. And how have I done that? The best advice I can say is prayer is a big benefit to me. Just praying for God to help me forgive myself. Recognizing that we all make mistakes. That is not just a Blake Williams sin problem. We all have a sin problem, and we all make mistakes, and we need to forgive ourselves, and others need to forgive us. So it's been that process of, maybe daily, weekly, monthly, forgiving yourself for something, because it's always something. Even this past couple of months, I did something really stupid, and I've had to work through again, forgiving myself for that really stupid thing that I did. So
Yeah, prayer, it can be as easy as touching heart, shoulder, looking at yourself in the mirror and be like, hey man,
mm,
I forgive you and I love you. I like to handwrite the forgiveness stuff for myself, but then also other people, because we hold resentments, that feeling of being treated unfairly against other people, and that
yeah.
does that to you too. That puts a splinter inside of you when you're trying to poke it into somebody else. I write down what the event was. Here's how I felt about it at the time. Here's how like my boundaries or my desires were unfulfilled, and like here's what could have been done, or here's how I might approach it differently. And then I go, I forgive you for any pain and suffering that you brought to me, just as I ask you to forgive me for any pain and suffering I brought to you. I am sorry for any role that I played in this process, and I forgive you for any role that you played in this process. I give you your power back, give you back what is yours, and I take back what is mine. And from now on, this is where we get to tap on our hearts.
Mm.
Only love can connect us. And then after I write that down and I tap it and I say it and I feel it a couple times and sometimes cry, then I take that little letter and I just burn it. I leave it to higher power, higher source, whatever. That's one process that I like to go through that's been really impactful too. Yeah. So bringing this back, so we've talked about one Everest, one mountain of yours, one way that you had to heal so that you were able to have the vitality to climb mountains like starting battle tested in your life. What are the biggest obstacles? We talked about the wound, shame, the guilt, the self-doubt, the fear that are a byproduct of that, and the men, the boys that you have worked with. What do you see the obstacles, the challenges that they faced in scaling their personal Everest? What are the things that are in their way that you help guide them around or over?
So much of it, Rob, is their own beliefs, character skills, thoughts about themselves. I mean, we are our own worst enemies. We are our own biggest obstacles. You are the hardest person you will ever lead. Blake Williams is the hardest person that Blake Williams will ever lead. I get in my own way more than anybody else gets in my way. I think worse about myself than anybody else is going to think about myself. I doubt myself more than anyone else is ever going to doubt myself. Like, it's me. Like, I am my own worst person, or worst critic. I'm going to prevent me from climbing any Everest that I want to climb. And so people that come to me are people who say, hey, I need help with these things. Like, even back in battle tested days, there were student athletes that maybe had all the physical tools in the world you can't believe to be a tremendous athlete, but right here was just, they were all messed up, had zero belief in themselves. The anxiety was huge. The self-doubts, the fears. And so much of me helping people has been through this process of trying to help them with those things. And that's really why I wrote Giant Killer with John, is that my co-author, John Peacock, was to help prepare people for those giants that we all face in life. Everybody can recognize them. Fear, self-doubt, anxiety, temptation, pride, loss, even comfort. Like, we face those giants. So often we lose those battles against those giants. So what can we do to better prepare ourselves for those battles? Because that's what most people are coming to me with. Like, these 7 giants, yeah, these are the ones. These are the ones that really, beat me up and take my lunch money.
These stories, these deep seated core beliefs. That's the word I'm looking for. Like you were talking about worthiness or not being worthy before, as a result of the childhood experience. And these are all stories. They're all stories that we tell ourselves. Everything's a story. And we get to either choose to live in that story or to change the story. But like you mentioned, courage is the first step, finding that core, that heart, and then chunking it, baby stepping it. So I'm curious about the giant killer framework for working through those things. What is the advice that you offer, since those stories and those 7 in particular, I think I heard 7, are the big ones. So what's your advice? What are your practices for beginning to move through that, to reframe, to change those stories so that you can scale
great
your
question.
Everest?
We came up with this 5-step process. John Maxwell will be very proud. We came up with a 5-step process. I had to do these 5 things. They all start with the letter D. Each step starts with the letter D, and the first one's the most important. Just like the baby step, right? Just take that first step. And the first step is to decide. You've been facing that giant of fear, perhaps, for decades, or that giant of self-doubt. You've been facing it for decades. Make a decision. Make a decision to engage, to step in, to start the process of healing, of trying to find victory over that giant. Just decide to get started. And so that's the first step. And then once you decide, you got to discern, right? We got to discern, well, who exactly am I facing here? I sense there's resistance, there's adversity I'm going through. Well, what is it? Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Is it self-doubt? Could it be loss? Like, you really got to discern, well, what giant am I facing? Because different giants might be fought a little bit different ways. The strategies you might use to defeat that giant, you might be different depending on what the giant is. So a good giant killer is going to discern, what giant am I facing? And then the next step is to discover. We're going to discover, okay, well, if this is the giant I'm facing, what do I need to take in the battle? If we use the David and Goliath story, David went to a stream, and it said he found 5 smooth stones. Why smooth stones? Because he had a sling, and he knew he needed aerodynamic stones, right? Small, smooth stones. So he finds a specific stone to take in the battle. And so we also, let's learn from that. Well, what are the specific stones I need to take in the battle? If it's fear, then I need courage. If it's comfort, I need discipline. If it's pride, I need humility. And so trying to find that character skill, if you will, I need to develop to help me defeat that giant. The 4th step is then to develop that skill. So let's say I've gone through a lot of loss, and we can talk about that too, not just the early birth family, but if you're facing the giant of loss, you need to be resilient. You need to have that in you that gets you back up and goes back in to engage in the battle. We can't just roll over and quit life. And so, okay, if resilience is what I need when I'm facing loss, well, how do I develop that, right? How do I develop that skill so that when the giant comes, I'm ready? I don't want to wait till the giant's already here. I prefer to be proactive and be ready when it comes, but perhaps, hey, I'm already in it. Maybe some of the listeners are already facing loss right now. They're in the middle of grieving something that they've lost or someone that they've lost. Start working on your resilience. And so that's kind of the 5th step of the process. Once you've developed your resilience, you've developed it, now it's time to deploy it. You've built the skill, just like we say in the book, Tiger Woods, he made all these putts every day. I think it's 1,000 putts a day he would make in practice at the height of his career. And, he didn't just do it for fun. He eventually would deploy that skill. He would take that onto the actual course and use that during matches, during competitions, during battle. So those are the 5 steps that we say are the things we need to do to help prepare us to be giant killers.
Those 5 steps, when you notice that you are desiring more, bring it all the way back to the first words that came out of our mouths today, because you're not where you want to be. And you realize that there are particular things that you're saying, that you're doing, and stories in here that are holding you back. They're indicative that there is a wound. So, 1, leaning into that, like Frodo with the ring, you gotta leave the Shire, man. You gotta go. You don't know where it's gonna take you, but you have to trust and you have to lean in and find that, like we said, find that courage from your heart. Then determine, well, who is the adversary? Cool, I'm leaning into this experience that I'm having, but who am I facing? Right. What am I up against? And then once you have some kind of an idea about that, like we said, this work is continual. It's murky. You get in there, you peel back another onion layer. You're like, oh, there's more. Determining, okay, what are the tools that I need to face this particular adversary or this like video game boss, if we want to look at it that way? What are the right tools, techniques, skills, attacks, defenses, whatever, for me to actually have a chance of taking this giant down? And then, cool, those are the things. These are the things I need to train and get better at. These are the traits I need to develop and become more resilient, which is just the ability to overcome adversity. And the more you face little things, it's why you and I did ice baths. It's why I teach breath work. The more you face those little things, the more you grow your resilience capacity. So when the big things happen, they're less likely to sweep you away. They might sweep you off your feet. You might float a little bit, but hey, now you know how to swim because you practiced it. And then finally,
Everest, right? And, to get from here to here, if that's what you want in your life, there's always opposition. There's always going to be things that try to stop us, and oftentimes it's us and those things that come from inside of us. Well, this is the way you go about trying to defeat the opposition, defeat the giants, if you will. Absolutely. Yep.
And then you deploy it. Then you take it out. You've practiced this. What's the saying? When there's two of them that I like. Is everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. That's a really important one. And then the next thing is what happens when you get punched in the face. You're going to sink to the level of your training. And if you're following this framework, then you're going to sink to the level of your training, which you have been doing intentionally, consciously. If you're not doing this, then you're going to sink to the level of having no training whatsoever, which makes it a little bit harder. You're not hopeless.
Goliath, that wasn't his first time using a sling, right? He'd used a sling countless times while defending his flock as a shepherd. So it wasn't new to him. He'd practiced those skills. He was probably the best guy to be out there slinging a stone against Goliath, having the best chance of winning, obviously. So
awesome, man. Well, is there anything else that you want to add on there? Anything else that's popping up in your head?
I obviously I'm a bit of I call myself a resilience coach. I don't know if you've even heard me use that term to describe myself, but this last year or so, in particular 2 years, I've used that term. I've gone through a lot of loss, so I mentioned that, and I was raised with my brother, and if you look at the statistics of fatherless boys, and statistics will tell you they're more prone for blah, 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 all these bad things, right? Drug use and dropping out of high school and eventual incarcerations, all these things. And my brother checked every box. Loved my brother, but he checked every box. He became a statistic in every one of those metrics, including suicide. So I lost my brother when I was 28, he was 29. And hardest thing I'd been through and to that point until 2 years ago, March 7th, 2 years ago, my wife of 26 years committed suicide. And what I like to point out is that as a father of 5 kids who now has to try to parent single with 5 kids, had my brother not committed suicide, had I not gone through that, I would have been far less prepared for my wife to go through that, for my wife to do the very same thing. And all I can say is this, is that life prepares us for more life. Like, if you would have told me, hey, there's going to be some really good things that come from your brother's suicide, when it happened, I would have totally disagreed with you. No, that's horrible. How could anything good come from this? We're all broken, wounded, the trauma that we're experiencing. And it's just been made clear over life of interactions with people who I needed to help counsel because maybe they're experiencing something similar to that. Up into now experiencing my wife doing this, it has equipped me, not fully, because losing a wife of 26 years is different than losing a brother. But it has better prepared me to cope, to manage, and certainly to help walk my kids through this devastating thing that they're experiencing. So I know it's hard. The Bible tells us we should be thankful in all things, and that is hard to do. That is hard to do. When you lose your wife, your brother, whoever, it's hard to be thankful in that moment. And I don't think God's expecting us to bow down and say, thank you for the loss of my ex. But I think he does want us to have a heart of just being open to that, hey, I am God, I am in control, and good will come from this. There will be things, there will be ways in which you will be better, and you will make this world better as a result of the loss that we've gone through. So many people now connect with me over this suicide issue because I've been through it. People that are watching this have gone through things themselves, and there are ways in which they're equipped to speak in and help other people, serve other people because of what they've been through. You, Rob Bill, same thing, right? You have unique experiences that have made you you, things that have prepared you to be Rob Bill on this day, this time. You're equipped with all the things you need to be this version of Rob today. Tomorrow, there may be more things that you're going to go through. They're going to help prepare you for your future. And I got to be honest, I love that. Like, I love it. Like, I wish I would have had to go through those things? No, absolutely not. But I am thankful. I can look back and be thankful that I wouldn't have written life any differently. I don't think it's brought me to where I am, and it's not, some days are harder than others, obviously, but man, God does not leave. There are no accidents. He uses all these things for eventual good, whether we understand it or see it one day or not. So, off the soapbox now.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being courageous enough to bring that forward. And it's really it comes right back to finding heart in whatever way that you do that naturally, through prayer, through God, through inner connection, whatever your practice is. And when you find heart, you're more able to move from victim orientation, this happened to me, into a creator orientation, which is the ability to be like, yeah, this really sucks. I know that it's here to strengthen me in some way.
And I think so much is the mindset.
And then,
because your history can either be your enemy or it can be your ally. I really think that's your choice. And unfortunately, too many people allow their history to be their enemy. They spend too much time looking in the rearview mirror instead of the windshield ahead of them as to where they should be going. And they look at that stuff and they see how horrible it was and how devastated they were and all the wounds that resulted from it. And they just letting history continue to beat them up, letting their history continue to hold them back. Instead of taking that history, learn from it. Yeah, maybe it was horrible. Maybe you made horrible mistakes, but learn from that. Okay, I did it. Own up to it. What can I do to be better going forward? How can I use it to make me better or to make the world around me better? I think there's always hope in that future of being able to find ways to make to allow your history to be your ally instead of your enemy.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really it's personal alchemy. The alchemists were trying to create the philosopher's stone so that they can make a dumbed down version of it, but make gold from lead. And really, that's there's 4 primary archetypes inside of every man. We have thousands of them, but there's 4 that are really, really important. And one of them is the magician. That's a quality of that magician, that ability to make something from nothing or turn a negative into a positive, and be able to look back at this story, this experience, and be like, well, how can I reframe this? Because abracadabra means by my words I create. The word spell is inside of the word spelling. By beginning to change our stories, the words that we speak into the world, we change our experience as well. And we have that power within us. And you, sir, are a testament to that. All right, man. Well, that's all I got for you today.
Yeah,
you feel complete in this
Thank you
conversation?
as always, love what you're doing, and happy to call myself a Sherpa alongside.
Yes, you are a Sherpa. I will receive that title, that
You,
honorary
you are.
title from you as Sherpa as well. I love it. I'm taking it. And that's it, my friends. So this is Masculinity Rising number 3 with Blake. And we're going to wrap this thing up. This is an 8-week project for me right now. So if you're listening to this, you're watching it, you're like, this is amazing. I want more. This is value for value. So I'm only going to do it if you like it, because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. And so you can give value back to me just by commenting, liking, sharing this. I'm going to post it. I'm going to tag Blake in it. And then this is going to go on YouTube to be evergreen forever, so you can access it whenever. And that's it. So
Thanks, Rob.
thanks for being here, Blake, and everybody listening. And have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful day. And
Take care, brother.
courage. Find your heart.
Bye-bye.
Bye.